Sat around in the morning meeting and I was just listening to them talk about politics really informally. And I just thought, this is the most interesting thing I hear all day. You know, podcasting was going through a gold rush. There was a huge boom in the industry. It's a bit like an oil tanker sometimes, and it can take a while to kind of steer it in a different direction. So I went in with my eyes open, knowing that I'm not an accountant, I'm not good with spreadsheets, I'm not good with budgets initially. I've learned very quickly. Tom said to me right at the start, he said, your first job within year one is to prove that you can do what you did at the BBC outside of the BBC. So very quickly we started thinking about what is a kind of big, ambitious news format fronted by, you know, recognizable talent presenters, and is habit forming, you know, that is something that people will want to listen to ideally every day. And that's what we did with the newsagents. It was the part of their day that they enjoyed the most. So Emily would go on Newsnight, John would go on the 10 o'clock news, but the thing that they were stopped in the street about was the podcast. You've got to be really honest with yourself. And my dad was a local businessman in Sheffield, and he had a gift shop, and he's always been self-employed for most of his life. And he said to me, before I took the plunge, he just said, you've got to have a conversation with yourself about whether you think you can pull this off. Because he said, being in business is a very lonely experience. Lots of people will encourage you and tell you what you want to hear. But at the end of the day, when you take that plunge and you launch your business, it's you and maybe your co-founder, but you've got to be sure that it's going to work, and you can't kid yourself. I had that honest conversation. Did I think I could pull this off? And I looked at the people around me. I knew that Emily and John were big talent, recognizable names. I had the backing of Tom, my business partner, who was very good on giving me sound financial advice. But I just believed that there was something that I had that we could translate into the commercial world. One of the biggest things that you come up against, I think, is when you're starting a business is, what do you charge for stuff? Yeah. You know, how do you value what you do? How much is it going to cost you to you know, all of a sudden you're having to employ freelancers, you're having to buy software. So very quickly, it's that learning curve that we talked about, which is straight away just having to learn on the fly a bit. Then the next big challenge was the newsagents, of course, and that was a really big challenge because you know, we went in with a really ambitious plan saying we're going to launch a daily show as a small independent. And I had the evidence of what I'd done before, but that was at the BBC, and I had to convince people I could do it outside. I had to work bloody hard to get it over the line, but it's there now. But that was the big challenge. I think the other big challenge is people. You know, it's a people business. Yeah. One of the things that I'd learned that is quite important is about being able to shout about what you do well, and when you launch your company, trying to do it around a moment. So I remember that I was invited to speak at a Radio Academy Festival around the time that I launched the company, or was planning to. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to coincide my announcement with that, being on that platform. You know, using that opportunity to make a bit of a splash and, you know, reach out to the media press that I had contacts with, and, you know, saying that I was going to launch my company. So tapping into any resource you have, any opportunity you have to kind of shout about what you do, because ultimately that then made it a bit easier for me to go and hire people saying, look, I'm doing this thing. I could send a link to, you know, the article in the Radio Times or whatever it was, or the Media Guardian, and say, look, this is my thing. This is what we're going to do. This is how ambitious we are. Do you want to come along for the journey? You're only as good as your last job, basically, and you need to make sure your quality is absolutely top notch, and you should turn down jobs if you think you can't deliver it. Look, it comes down to a great idea, great talent, and there is a kind of secret sauce, which is, you know, is it something that people see and they connect with? It's a really intimate space. It's not just the radio that people have got on in the background while they do the dishes. They're choosing to click on a podcast and pipe it into their ears. It's a very different thing. It's a very intimate experience. And to do that, you've got to make it a really, really kind of good, compelling, exciting offer for people to want to listen to it. I think it would actually be a little bit foolish to kind of say this is definitely what we're doing for the next 3 years, because part of having a startup is, A, responding to the market, responding to what you're good at, responding to where the demand comes. So actually is look to innovate and look to where's the market heading? How can I get one step ahead of this industry? Do you think you have something else that nobody else is offering? Or can you do that thing better than the other people in the market? Is there a gap for you? Yeah. If you are not as good as your nearest competitor and they're already 3 years ahead of you, that should be ringing alarm bells. So what's your kind of USP? We just need to look at machine learning and AI. Things are changing very quickly, like scarily quickly. And it is scary, but it doesn't need to be. And as businesses and startups, we are nimble and small enough, that's the advantage we have, to look ahead and go, I can get there quickly by maybe taking a little bit of a risk with 1 or 2 jobs, keeping my bread and butter, but innovating and being the person that's best at that, innovation. We have a lot of data, and the data we have tells us all we really need to know about where the audience are, where the audience is growing. Look, I know if people are skipping the ads in podcasts. Compared to radio is people fill in a book and say, it's a sample of people who fill in a book, say, I listen to, the Today programme at this time on a Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever. It's quite unreliable. Podcasting data is incredible. I think this is one of the other things I would say is that if you're doing something successfully in any field of work, how can you spin that off into something else? So it's working well in one area, how can we do it in another area? So Brexitcast turned into a daily newscast because we were getting to the end of the Brexit process, sort of. But we identified that there was an opportunity there to create something else, a daily, more ambitious. So when we got them in a room for the first time, sparks flew, I knew it was going to work. And Trump absolutely helped us, just as when we launched the newsagents, Liz Truss helped us. Incredible.